Good morning from the wood shop. It's just one more week until Christmas Eve, and I'm sure the kids are really getting excited. I get a little excited this time of the year too, and during the course of the next week, I'll talk a little bit about Christmas and some of the Christmas texts as well. Today we're going to talk about Revelation 8. Or not Revelation 9 rather, I'm sorry, we looked at 8 yesterday. And Revelation 8 ended after the fourth angel's trumpet had blown, and the last thing we heard was woe, woe, woe to the earth, to the inhabitants of the earth. And those three woe words, W-O-E, meaning pain and sorrow and agony, are a little bit of a warning about what is to come. Because as we start chapter 9, and the fifth angel blows the trumpet, it says that, he says, I saw a star that had fallen from heaven to earth. And he was given the key to the shaft to a bottomless pit. And he opened that shaft, and from that shaft rose smoke so dense, like out of a great furnace, that it darkened the sun, and you think about that. I mean, the sun and the moon and the stars have all been darkened by a third already by one of the other trumpets that was blown by an angel. And so this great cloud of smoke comes up and darkens it even more. I mean, and this isn't just a darkness that just lasts for a few minutes, but this is a darkness that is long lasting. And not only is the smoke coming, but with the smoke comes this herd of locusts. I don't know if I should say a herd, a swarm. Locusts, so many you can't even count them or can't even think about them. And I think about, when you talk about locusts and grasshoppers, and back in the 30s and 40s when they were having enough problems with drought and everything else, when there's a lack of rain, a lack of precipitation, the grasshoppers and those locusts, the eggs hatch more, and with rain and stuff, that it controls them somewhat. But there were swarms of locusts that would come in and settle in a field and basically just harvest the field, and it would be gone. And I've walked, along prairie trails and out in the grass in the fields and stuff where there's grasshoppers hopping all over the place, and you think, wow, there's a lot of them. But, there's just such a thick swarm of them that you can't escape them. And these locusts are, there's some nasty looking things too. I mean, if you've read this or you read along here as we look at it, but they were warned not to damage any of the grass or eat any of the foliage, and that's normally what locusts eat. The wheat and the barley and the oats, those are the crops that would be devastated by them. But no, what are they messing with? The people that don't have the mark of God on them. You think about that for unbelievers. For an unbeliever, it's the unbelievers that are going to get plagued by these locusts. And so a person that has been marked with the mark of God, whether it's the baptismal cross on your forehead or whatever this mark might be, we don't have an idea for sure what that is, but maybe just having a believer's heart. They can recognize it, just like, I've talked about the demons always recognized who Jesus was as the Son of God. But these locusts torture the inhabitants of the earth, all of humankind that aren't believers in God, for 5 months. Think about that. What have you had in your life that has a sickness, an illness, or something that's been at you for 5 months? I know people that have different diseases that rack their bodies with pain, and I've got arthritis that I have pain and discomfort from, and different things. But these locusts are inflicting stuff all of the time. There's pain all of the time. It's I had a conversation with someone with fibromyalgia one time, a couple different times, and several times. But this is something that their body is just continually in pain. And shingles is another one of those things. Just, or if you have, I remember when I was a kid, go out to Red Willow Lake and you'd get swimmer's itch, and your whole body is covered with these little red welts, and they just itch and they just drive you crazy. Well, those things are nothing compared to what this swarm of locusts is going to do to the unbelievers. It says they are allowed to torture them for 5 months, but not kill them. And their torture was like the torture of a scorpion when it stings somebody. Have you ever been stung by a bee? I mean, I remember when I was, I don't know, probably first or second grade, I was down at a friend's place, and there were some bees, along the lilacs or whatever they were, the flowers, and we decided we were going to catch a bee and put it in a jar and take it to school. And I caught one in my hands just like that, and my friend ran to the house, and before he got very far, that bee stung me, and I let him go, but that hurt. But these there's swarms of them that way, and it's going to hurt, and it's going to kill, and it's not going to kill them, but they're going to wish that they could die. It says these people are going to wish they could die, but they won't be able to die. They're going to be in so much pain and so much agony. And this is the first woe to come, but for 5 months that they're going to be pestered with this. And it says these locusts, the appearance were like horses equipped for battle. I mean, these weren't just little bitty grasshoppers. They were good size. They weren't the size of a horse, but they appeared like a horse. They had a crown of gold. Their faces were like human faces, and all of this stuff. They had scales like breastplates. Their wings made noise like many chariots. They had tails like scorpions with stingers. And, they were there. I mean, just think about that. 5 months with these locusts stinging and biting, and there's no escape. There's no escape. And then finally, they're called back into the bottomless pit. And then there says there's 2 more woes to come. And we're going to see the second woe in verse 13. The 6th angel blew a trumpet, and the voice from the 4 horses comes to the golden altar. Release the 4 angels who are bound at the great river Euphrates. And it says they've been held ready for the hour, ready for this day, ready for this month, ready for this year, ready for this moment. They've been held ready for this moment of ushering in the end of time. They've been held there. And it says the number of their herd of cavalry was 200 million. I can't even imagine 200 million. I mean, that's a lot. That's a huge, huge army. And, and then again it talks about how the horses were reined and everything, but what is it? They got heads like lions' heads. And out of that comes fire, smoke, and sulfur. And these 3 plagues, the fire, smoke, and sulfur, wipe out 1/3 of the humans living on earth. 1/3 of the humans who aren't believers. Or maybe it's a total of 1/3 anyway. I mean, even counting believers, but the believers are spared this. And just like with the scorpions or the locusts, they come and it just wipes out 1/3 of humanity. So you think about that. The earlier on where the sun and all that was darkened by 1/3, and then there's at the last horn, the smoke darkened the sun, and maybe by this time that smoke has gone away, and there's a little bit more light and stuff. But they've just lived through 5 months of pure torture, wishing that they could die because of these locusts. And then these others come, and with the fire, the sulfur, and the smoke that comes out, 1/3 of the population dies. I mean, when this pandemic started this year, we were scared into believing that, it was just going to be massive numbers of people dying from this, and there was going to be, terrible devastation. Fortunately, it hasn't been that way. I mean, there have been people that have died, but yet the total death in the United States is fewer than a lot of years and everything that way. But 1/3, think about that, 1/3. Think about if there was 1/3 of the people in the community that you live in. I mean, a lot of you that are listening live out here in rural North Dakota where we're not huge areas. But think about, in the United States, I don't know, is it 8 million people in the United States? Well, say 2.5 million people die. I mean, that's tremendous. What do you do? How do you handle that? And not only how do you handle it, but think of all of the grief. Think of all of the grief and the pain and the sorrow. But this is the second woe, that 1/3 of the population of the world is gone. is no more. And then it says, verse 20, when we are coming toward the end of this chapter, the rest of the inhabitants of the earth did not change their ways. The rest of the inhabitants continued to worship idols and continued to sin and continued to live in sin and continued to ignore God. And so here, even when we've got this revelation and we've got these warnings and we've got people who are talking about God and we've got people who are faithful, witnessing God's love and everything, we still have this huge number of people who don't believe in God and who don't give up their worshiping. And verse 21 says they did not repent of all of these sinful things that they were doing. They did not repent. And tomorrow we're going to get into chapter 10, where another mighty angel comes and blows a trumpet or whatever happens. So I'm not going to get into that right now, but we had, the end of chapter 8 said, woe, woe, woe. And now these two, the angels 5 and 6, just the terrible travesty that came upon the earth. And you can't say that it's because God is an angry, nasty, ugly old God that doesn't love and care. God has been showing his love and his grace and his mercy through all the generations of humanity. And we are encouraged and we are warned and we are welcome to become believers. And as I said, as I started today, we're 1 week from Christmas Eve. And tomorrow will be a week, and it will be at Christmas time, where we celebrate the birth of the Christ child. And we remember Jesus' words that for God so loved the world that he sent his son. And this is what we're coming up to preparing for. So I think it's fitting in an awful lot of ways as we read through the Bible this year, and we're probably going to do the same thing again next year, but because whatever goes on. But we're coming to the end of the year. We're coming to the end of the Bible. We're coming to what God has revealed to John. And again, we're not going to totally understand this, but the biggest revelation that God has for you and for me is his love in the birth of his son, Jesus Christ, who came to be born a baby and to live on this earth for you and for me. And we need to always remember, as we're looking at Revelation, that the Lamb, Jesus Christ, who's on the throne, is still there, still in control, still loving, still full of grace. So, may you know God's blessings today. Thanks for tuning in.